Hi and welcome to Viking and Viking. I'm at Stading and we are standing with a nice view over central Gothenburg. This is Götaplatsen. I have the art museum behind me and we are literally surrounded with culture. To the right, below us, we can see the city library, the city theater, and to the left we have the city concert hall, and just below us we have the Hasselblad Center for photographical art. And this is Götaplatsen, and you can see it's really a cultural hotspot. It's like the Goth in Gothenburg. And in the center you can see a nice statue of Poseidon. So today's topic is Vikings in Gothenburg. Were the Vikings in Gothenburg? Well, if you know your history, you know that Gothenburg is 400 years this year. It was founded in 1621, which is way after the Viking Age, which was approximately 9th to 11th century. So, well, there were no Vikings in Gothenburg city. But so let's rephrase the question. Were there Vikings in Gothenburg area before Gothenburg was founded? Well, to find that out, we need to head downtown to the City Museum. So, let's go. This is the statue of Poseidon. So, let's have a closer look before heading down the avenue. So, this is the avenue. Locals just say the avenue, even if it has a longer name, Kungsportsavenyn, which translated means King's Gate Avenue. Actually, the avenue that leads to the King's Gate. And the King's Gate was one of the gates in the old city when it was walled. So we will actually head down to the old city, even if it's not walled today. And then we will pass through it. And then you will have a look at the sights on the way. The avenue is the place you go when you want to have a nice dinner, or you want to watch the sunset from up where we just were, or you just want to watch people at night. And the reason why we have the avenue and the old walled city was that in the early 17th century, the Gothenburg area was a very strategic point for Sweden. It was our only access point to the Atlantic. And all the lands north of Gothenburg belonged to Norway, and all the lands south of Gothenburg to Denmark. So this was our only way out for trade and for travel. And in the early 17th century, we had lots of wars, especially with the Danes. I'm sorry if you had any Danes listening. At that time, you were really the bad guys, pillaging and making life tough for us in this area. So we had already a fortress in the river, Älvsborgs Fästning, and this fortress was taken by the Danes twice actually, and we had to pay a ransom for it twice. The second ransom was 1 million Swedish kroner, and at that time that was a huge amount of money. It was about 3/4 of the GDP. So you can imagine in today's value it would be something like 350 billion euros, a lot of money. And the one who had to pay the ransom, because we did pay the ransom over a couple of years, that was of course the taxpayers. So in order to collect this tax, the authorities or the king was ordering everybody to be put on lists, so you knew exactly who were living in the country, who was born, who was dying, so they could pay enough tax. And these lists are actually one of the reasons why genealogy is so popular in Sweden, and you can trace your ancestors all the way down to early 1600. And the one who founded the city was King Gustaf Adolfs II, and he decided that the city should be here in 1621. Then he went off to fight some wars, the 30-year War in Europe, where he also died in 1632. And that didn't stop any wars with Denmark. They just continued, several of them, and in the late 1650s, King Gustaf Adolf's grandson, King Karl X, was out on wars at that time in Poland. So all of the Swedish army was in Poland, and then the Danes again declared war with Sweden. In that situation, he had to hurry back to Sweden, but he couldn't really take the shortest way across the Baltic because the Danish Navy was too strong. So he took the drastic decision to walk his army all the way through present north of Germany and into Denmark. After some battles, he actually made it, fought his way into Jutland, and by that time it was very cold winter. And it was really an extremely cold winter, so the ocean froze. So both straits between the Danish islands froze. So he managed to walk his army across the ocean and into Zealand, where he could attack Copenhagen. Well, he actually didn't attack Copenhagen, but because the Danes surrendered. And in 1658, that meant good times for Gothenburg, because Sweden got all the lands north of Gothenburg and south of Gothenburg, so it was much more peaceful here. And if you look ahead on the square, which is the square of Gustaf Adolf, you can see him standing there pointing and saying that this is where the city should be. There are quite a lot of police out this night, I don't know why, but so there is. So let's have a closer look at the statue. So there you can see him pointing, build the city here. Okay, let's go towards the City Museum. And as you will see, the City Museum has a very nice exhibition on Vikings. And that's where we're headed today. The City Museum is in an old building which used to belong to the East Indian Trading Company that had its base here in Sweden. But today it's a museum with different exhibitions, and of course the ones on Vikings is the one I like the best. And here we are, this is the City Museum. So let's stop here and get inside. This is the entrance hall of the City Museum, and we're heading up to the first floor where the Vikings exhibition is. And there we will meet Mari Wickerts, who is an educational officer and also an experimental archeologist who works here at the museum. She's an expert on the Viking Age and especially on the Vikings in this region, and she will help us with the question. If you remember from the last episode when we visited Kata Farm, there was a picture of the reconstruction of Kata. And it's actually Marie who made the clothes for this reconstruction, starting from the fragments that they found in the grave, and then adding on her big knowledge on clothing from the Viking Age. Hi, Marie.
Hi.
Nice that you could take the time to help me out. And so I go right to the question. Were there any Vikings here in the region?
Of course there were. People have been living here since the Stone Age, 12,000 years ago. The first people arrived to the west coast, or what we call the west coast of Sweden.
Yeah.
And we have a fantastic map here, actually. It could be a bit tough because it's got the white lines, but this is the southern parts of Gothenburg. So Gothenburg is situated here, the center of the city. That's where we are right now, in the museum. And this is the island of Hisingen, as we say. Back then they said Hising.
Okay.
Hising. And then we have Bohuslen that comes. And if we look back 1,000 years and more, this is the tough part for people. We didn't exist. We never had any land here.
Okay.
Yes.
Ah.
So if we go up to the town of up here, Kungälv, the Norwegian town, the Gauts River starts there. That's the interesting part. And where that one starts is where the Swedes used to be.
Yeah. But what about the coastline? I know that the water level was higher, right?
A little bit higher, yes, it was. And it makes it easier for you to access. And of course, people were situated by the river. The water combined people, good to travel on. And this region up here belonged to Denmark, as it says. Hisingen and north part was Norwegian.
Okay.
And on and off Denmark, early in the 800 AD, where we usually say the Viking Age more or less have started around 740, 750, then this region, all of it, and into Norway, was ruled by Denmark.
Okay, so the alliances were all to the Danes and not to the Geats in the Västergötland. Okay,
Exactly.
but what about the trade? I guess there were a lot of trade at these times as well.
Of course, we were trading. Yes, that was the main part. And you have beautiful stories from the Icelandic saga. You have Torolf and Torgils. They live in the west coast of Norway. And doing bad things means that you eventually need to immigrate. And they eventually immigrate to Iceland because they've been doing bad things. And Torolf was the one that owned the ship. It says very clear in the Icelandic saga, he owns the ship. And he travels with Torgils down the coast and comes up the Gauts River. This is the Gauts River. Or the Södra, because it starts here. The Gauts live here, so the river can't start until in Kungälv.
Oh, yeah.
So this is the Södra River, and this is the Nordre River. And you don't get Göta älv until we move down. And that's in the midst of the 1200.
But so there must be a lot of artifacts found here.
Oh, yes, yes. And the sagas, too. Torolf wasn't nice. He was trading, usually. And that was a good trading, because you have all the people living here with the big farmsteads. Rich farmsteads, good connections out to the open sea. And, of course, when you have a farmstead, there could be other stuff interesting, too. And the two men owning the farmstead had two visitors. They were after the two visitors. So they hid with a big, huge ship. They came. And they actually ransacked the place. Not popular. So again, it kicks back further and further in the history that you have people traveling to the region, trading, but also going what we call berserk. Attacking farms. So yes, depending on who you were and what you needed.
Okay, so we can definitely conclude that there were Vikings here in the region.
Oh, yes.
As in all the other regions. And also, I mean, we can see behind Mari there is this wonderful ship from the Viking age. But that's actually worth its own story, so we'll come back to that.
Yes.
So, last words, please.
If we have that part, because you gave me such good questions. I was going to try to answer the first question first, and then the second one. But that's perfect, because we join it together, and it kind of flows much better that way, doesn't it?
No.
So this region here, where we have Gothenburg today, with the center of the city, you'll have to remember when you asked me about the Viking part.
Yes.
Yeah, there wasn't anything here. It was a river coming down, and in the spring it would overflow with water from the inland. In the winter or in the late autumns, the storms would come in. The storms would feed the beautiful grass fields here with fantastic salt. Makes the plant grow very well. And the fresh water would come down, so it would be easy for the animals to graze in the region. So what we today talk about when you start your bicycle trips out at Götaplatsen, that's where the farmsteads probably were from the beginning, and on up to the mountains, up to Chalmers. Down here was marshy land, perfect for grazing for the animals. And we were known for grazing because the animals grew so big. And we talk about, of course, the cows and the oxen, but also pigs, sheep. Sheep gets really good wool. So that's the thing too. Where do you get the good sheep with the good wool? You want to buy the whole package, because you can use the wool and you can eat fantastic meat from it that already is kind of, impregnated with the plants. Yes, with the salt, but also the plants. And the plants were very nutritious along. So the rivers and the system here are very luxurious for people living with the farmsteads along the waterline. Okay,
great. You have so much to tell, and I'll definitely come back here. But I say thank you for today. It was great to hear. We'll come back for the ship, and we'll come back for other things. So thanks, and bye for now. We'll see you at some other site.